Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at the computer screen, her coffee growing cold as the strange signals played through her headphones again. The radio telescope had been picking up these patterns for 3 weeks now, and they didn't match anything in her database of known cosmic phenomena. She worked alone in the SETI research facility, surrounded by banks of computers that constantly listened to the universe. Most days brought nothing but static and the occasional burst from a distant star. But these signals were different. They had structure, rhythm, almost like voices talking back and forth. Elena adjusted her headphones and played the recording again. The signals came in short bursts, followed by longer transmissions, then silence. It reminded her of military radio chatter, but that was impossible. The signals were coming from somewhere near Jupiter. She ran the data through every analysis program she had. The computer confirmed what her ears already knew. This wasn't natural. Someone or something was having conversations in space, and they were using technology far beyond anything humans possessed. Elena's hands shook as she reached for her secure phone to call her supervisor, Dr. Williams. This was the discovery every SETI scientist dreamed of, proof that humanity wasn't alone in the universe. "Dr. Williams, I need you to come in right away. I found something incredible." Within an hour, Dr. Williams arrived with 2 men in dark suits who claimed to be from the Department of Defense. They looked at Elena's data for exactly 10 minutes before one of them made a phone call. "Dr. Vasquez," Williams said, his voice strained, "there's been a computer malfunction. These signals are just interference from our own satellites." Elena stared at him in disbelief. "That's not possible. I've checked everything twice. These are coming from deep space, and they're clearly artificial." The men in suits exchanged glances. One of them stepped forward. "Doctor, we're going to need you to delete this data and forget about it. This is a matter of national security." "National security? How can alien contact be a national security issue unless—" Elena's voice trailed off as the implications hit her. "Unless you already know about them." Williams wouldn't meet her eyes. "Elena, just do as they ask. Trust me on this." But Elena had spent her entire career searching for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth. She couldn't just pretend she hadn't found it. After the men left with Williams, she tried to access her data again. The files were gone, not deleted, gone, as if they had never existed. Even her backup drives had been mysteriously wiped clean. The next morning, Elena found her security clearance had been suspended. She was barred from entering the facility where she had worked for 8 years. When she called Williams, his secretary said he was unavailable and might be for quite some time. Elena drove home in a daze. Someone was covering up the biggest discovery in human history, and they had done it with frightening efficiency. She parked in her driveway and noticed a black SUV across the street that hadn't been there when she left that morning. Over the next few days, the SUV followed her everywhere. When she tried to contact other scientists about her discovery, she found that her calls were being blocked or monitored. Her emails bounced back as undeliverable. It was as if an invisible wall had been built around her, cutting her off from the scientific community. Elena realized she needed help from someone outside the system. She remembered reading about Marcus Chen, a former NSA analyst who had blown the whistle on government surveillance programs. If anyone would believe her story and know how to handle it, it would be him. She found his contact information on a secure messaging app used by journalists. After several coded exchanges, they agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown. Elena chose a table in the back corner and waited, constantly checking over her shoulder. Marcus arrived exactly on time, a thin man in his 40s with tired eyes and graying hair. He sat down without ordering anything and studied Elena carefully. "You're the radio astronomer," he said. It wasn't a question. "My sources tell me you stumbled onto something the government wants buried." Elena leaned forward and spoke in a whisper. "I found evidence of alien communications near Jupiter. Within hours, My data was erased and I was shut out of my own research facility. They're covering up first contact. Marcus nodded slowly. It's worse than you think. What you found wasn't first contact. It was evidence of an ongoing situation that's been hidden from the public for decades. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. What do you mean, ongoing situation? I mean, humanity has been at war with an alien empire for over 70 years, and our governments have been lying about it the entire time. Marcus pulled out a small device and checked it. We need to leave, now. My scanner shows at least 3 surveillance teams closing in on this location. They left the cafe separately, with Marcus instructing Elena to meet him at an address across town in 2 hours. Elena drove carefully, taking a winding route through the city while checking her mirrors. The black SUV appeared twice but seemed to lose her in traffic. The address led to an old warehouse in an industrial district. Elena parked and walked to a side door that opened before she could knock. A woman with short gray hair and military bearing gestured her inside. Dr. Vasquez, the woman said, welcome to the Resistance. We've been waiting for someone like you for a long time. Elena stepped into the warehouse and saw dozens of people working at computer stations, examining documents and studying what looked like pieces of advanced technology. Maps covered the walls, marked with locations all over the world and throughout the solar system. Marcus appeared at her side. Elena, meet Colonel Sarah Chen, my sister and the woman who's been documenting the real war for the past 20 years. Elena looked around in amazement. How many of you are there? Enough, Colonel Chen replied. Former military, intelligence analysts, scientists, and civilians who've all stumbled onto pieces of the truth. We call ourselves the Disclosure Network, and we're going to show you what's really been happening while the world sleeps. Elena realized her life had just changed forever. The signals from Jupiter hadn't just revealed the existence of aliens, they had pulled back the curtain on the greatest conspiracy in human history. Colonel Sarah Chen led Elena through the warehouse to a secure briefing room lined with metal walls. Inside, dozens of photographs, documents, and star charts covered every surface. Elena recognized some of the photos as official NASA images, but others showed spacecraft designs unlike anything she had ever seen. Before we begin, Colonel Chen said, you need to understand that everything you're about to learn has been classified at the highest levels for over 7 decades. The people who know this information have either sworn oaths of secrecy or disappeared entirely. Elena sat down at a conference table where Marcus was already waiting with a thick folder. I've been tracking this story for 15 years, he said. Even I didn't know the full scope until Sarah brought me into the network. Colonel Chen activated a projector that displayed a timeline on the wall. The first entry was marked July 1952, first contact. It started with what the public knows as the Washington UFO incident, she began. Flying saucers over the Capitol, military jets scrambling to intercept. The official story was weather balloons and radar malfunctions. The truth was the opening shot of an interstellar war. Elena studied the timeline, which continued through decades of entries marked with code names like Operation Deep Shield and Project Stellar Guard. None of it appeared in any history book she had ever read. The aliens call themselves the Hegemony, Colonel Chen continued. They're a galactic empire that has conquered hundreds of worlds over thousands of years. They came here expecting to find primitive humans still living in caves. Instead, they found a species that had somehow developed nuclear weapons and jet aircraft in just 50 years. Marcus pulled out a translated document. This is from a captured hegemony report dated 1952. Listen to this. The human species displays impossible technological acceleration. Our models suggest they should not have achieved powered flight for another 500 of their years. Yet they possess weapons that could destroy their own planet. Elena shook her head in disbelief. But why keep it secret? If we were being invaded, wouldn't people want to know? Because we weren't being invaded, Colonel Chen said grimly. We were being studied. The hegemony retreated after those first encounters, but they didn't leave. They established monitoring stations throughout our solar system and began sending larger scout forces to understand how humans had developed so quickly. The colonel clicked to the next slide, showing a photograph of what looked like a dogfight in space. Earth curved in the background while sleek human fighters engaged much larger alien vessels. This was taken in 1954 during the Battle of Luna Station. The hegemony tried to establish a permanent base on the far side of the moon. Our pilots stopped them using modified F-86 Sabres equipped with experimental rocket boosters and air-to-space missiles. Elena leaned forward to study the image. The human fighters looked impossibly small compared to the alien ships, but several of the larger vessels were clearly damaged or destroyed. How did we even get planes into space? Marcus grinned. That's the beautiful part. We didn't follow any rules because we didn't know the rules existed. The hegemony designs their ships based on thousands of years of established engineering principles. Humans just welded rocket engines to fighter jets and hoped for the best. Colonel Chen brought up another document. This is a strategic assessment from the Hegemony High Command, captured in 1967. They had upgraded our threat classification 3 times by then. They couldn't understand how humans kept defeating superior technology with what they called chaotic improvisation. The document, translated into English, made for fascinating reading. The aliens described human tactics as mathematically impossible and strategically incoherent, yet acknowledged that these same tactics had cost them dozens of ships and strategic positions. The real turning point came in 1961. Colonel Chen said, advancing to a new slide. President Kennedy's moon landing announcement wasn't just about beating the Soviets. The space race was cover for the largest military buildup in human history. While the public watched Apollo missions, we were secretly establishing armed outposts throughout the solar system. Elena looked at photographs of installations that looked nothing like the moon bases she had seen in NASA images. These were clearly military facilities, bristling with weapons and defensive systems. By 1969, when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface for the cameras, we already had 3 operational military bases on the moon and construction beginning on Mars, Marcus added. The public saw one giant leap for mankind. The hegemony saw a warrior species claiming territory with impossible speed. Colonel Chen pulled up a star chart showing the outer planets. Red dots marked dozens of locations throughout the asteroid belt and around Jupiter's moons. Every red dot represents a battle site. The hegemony kept probing our defenses, and we kept pushing them back. They had better ships, better weapons, and thousands of years of experience. We had something they had never encountered before. What's that? Elena asked. Humans who refused to accept that something was impossible, Colonel Chen replied. In 1978, a hegemony dreadnought, a ship the size of Manhattan, entered our solar system to end the conflict once and for all. It was equipped with weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never been penetrated in 1,000 years of galactic warfare. She clicked to a photograph that made Elena gasp. The massive alien vessel was clearly disabled, surrounded by tiny human ships that looked like gnats next to an elephant. Captain Maria Santos, commanding a modified space shuttle with a crew of 8, somehow managed to ram through their shields and board that dreadnought. Her team captured the ship using nothing but determination and improvised weapons. The hegemony had never seen anything like it. Marcus spread out more documents on the table. The aliens' own reports describe humans as tactical savages who ignore established military doctrine. What they see as stupidity, we call thinking outside the box. Every victory forced them to completely revise their assessment of what humans were capable of. Elena studied the evidence spread before her. Decades of secret battles, impossible victories, and a cover-up that had kept the truth from billions of people. But why hide it from us? If we were winning this war, why not tell the world? Colonel Chen's expression grew dark. Because the governments realized something terrifying. If the general population knew what human soldiers and engineers had accomplished in secret, they would want to join the fight, and that would mean revealing humanity's true nature to the entire galaxy. I don't understand. Marcus pointed to another captured document. According to hegemony intelligence, most species take thousands of years to develop from primitive to spacefaring. Humans did it in less than a century. They think we might be the result of genetic engineering by some extinct race of galactic engineers. But we're not, are we? Colonel Chen shook her head. No, we're exactly what we appear to be, a young species that evolved on a dangerous planet where only the most adaptable survived. The problem is that our rate of advancement terrifies every established civilization in the galaxy. If word spreads that humans exist, it could destabilize the entire galactic order. Elena sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by the implications. So our own governments are protecting the aliens from us? In a way, yes, Colonel Chen confirmed. The war continues because both sides are afraid of what would happen if it stopped. The hegemony can't let us expand beyond our solar system, and our governments can't let the public know we're capable of expanding beyond our solar system. Elena looked around the room at the evidence of humanity's secret accomplishments. Fighter pilots who had dogfought aliens among the asteroids, engineers who had reverse-engineered technology centuries ahead of Earth's development, soldiers who had captured enemy warships through sheer audacity. "What happens now?" she asked. Marcus and Colonel Chen exchanged a meaningful look. "Now," Colonel Chen said, "we prepare to change everything. Because the hegemony is planning something that will force the truth into the open, whether our governments want it or not." Elena followed Colonel Chen deeper into the warehouse complex, through hidden doors that led to underground levels she hadn't known existed. They emerged into a vast command center where dozens of monitors displayed real-time data from across the solar system. "Welcome to Night Watch Station," Colonel Chen said. "This is one of 12 hidden facilities that coordinate Earth's defense network. The public thinks we're tracking weather satellites. We're actually monitoring an active war zone that extends from Mercury to Pluto." An elderly man in a military uniform approached them. Despite his age, his back was straight and his eyes were sharp. Colonel Chen introduced him as General James Harrison, former commander of Space Defense Command. "Dr. Vasquez," the general said, shaking her hand, "Sarah tells me you've been brought up to speed on the basics. Now let me tell you about the real war." He led them to a holographic display showing the solar system in 3 dimensions. Green dots represented human installations, while red dots marked known hegemony positions. Elena was amazed to see that humans had spread far beyond Earth, with bases on nearly every major moon and asteroid. "It started small," General Harrison began. "After the Washington incident in 1952, both sides began a careful escalation. The hegemony would probe our defenses with scout ships. We would intercept them with whatever we could get into space. They expected us to give up once we realized how outmatched we were." He highlighted a region near Mars. "Instead, we did something that baffled them completely. We adapted. Every encounter taught us something new about their technology. Every captured weapon became a prototype for our next generation of defenses." Elena watched as the display showed historical battle sites throughout the solar system. "How did we even get the resources to build all this?" "Operation Deep Shield," Colonel Chen answered. "A joint international program that secretly diverted resources from every major space agency and military organization on Earth. While the public watched the Cold War, the superpowers were actually cooperating to defend humanity." General Harrison pointed to a cluster of installations around Jupiter. "By 1965, we had established our first major forward base on Europa. The hegemony decided to teach us a lesson about overextending ourselves. They sent a battle group of 12 heavy cruisers to wipe out our presence in the Jupiter system." The hologram shifted to show a recreation of the battle. Elena watched tiny human fighters swarming around massive alien vessels like angry bees attacking elephants. Admiral Lisa Park was in command of our forces, the general continued. She had 18 modified fighters, 6 converted cargo ships armed with improvised weapons, and a mining station that wasn't designed for combat, against 12 ships that each outgunned our entire fleet. Elena leaned forward as the simulation played out. What happened? General Harrison smiled grimly. Admiral Park did something the hegemony had never seen before. Instead of engaging in traditional ship-to-ship combat, she used the environment as a weapon. Jupiter's radiation belts, magnetic fields, and gravity well became her allies. The hologram showed human ships diving into Jupiter's atmosphere, using the gas giant's own storms to hide from enemy sensors. They emerged at unexpected angles, launching missiles from within the radiation that scrambled hegemony targeting systems. The aliens lost 8 ships in the Battle of Europa Station, Colonel Chen added. Their reports describe human tactics as environmental warfare beyond all established doctrine. They couldn't understand how we turned a star system into a weapons platform. Elena watched the simulation with growing amazement. But how did our pilots survive flying through Jupiter's radiation? Most of them didn't, General Harrison said quietly. 60% casualty rate. But Admiral Park understood something the hegemony couldn't grasp. Humans will accept impossible odds if the alternative is surrender. He advanced the display to show more battles throughout the 1970s and 1980s. Each engagement revealed new examples of human ingenuity overcoming superior alien technology. The asteroid belt became our strongest defensive position, he explained. The hegemony designs their ships for combat in empty space. We learned to fight among the rocks, using asteroid fields like three-dimensional terrain. Their massive vessels became liabilities when humans could hide behind space rocks and attack from any direction. Colonel Chen pulled up footage from what looked like a space-based dogfight. This is from the Christmas offensive of 1978. The hegemony thought they could break our will by attacking during Earth's holiday season. They sent 40 ships to destroy our belt installations. Elena watched human fighters weaving between asteroids, using the irregular gravity fields to perform impossible maneuvers. The alien ships, designed for clean lines of sight and predictable movement, struggled to track targets that could hide behind rocks and emerge from unexpected vectors. Captain Rodriguez figured out that hegemony ships compensate for gravitational anomalies automatically, General Harrison noted. So he started using controlled explosions to change asteroid rotations mid-battle. The enemy computers couldn't adapt fast enough to track fighters that were essentially surfing on artificial gravity waves. The hologram showed the aftermath. Dozens of wrecked alien vessels drifting among the asteroids while human ships, many damaged but still flying, regrouped for the next phase of battle. The real breakthrough came in 1983, Colonel Chen said, advancing to a new display. We captured an intact hegemony dreadnought during the Battle of Ceres Station. Elena saw a massive alien vessel, easily a kilometer long, surrounded by human recovery ships. How did we manage that? General Harrison chuckled. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, my predecessor in this job, discovered that hegemony ships have a fatal design flaw. They're so advanced that they're completely dependent on their central computer systems. Damage the main AI, and the entire ship becomes helpless. But how do you damage something inside a ship that size? You don't attack from the outside, he replied. Kim's team used mining charges to blow a hole in an asteroid, then launched their entire fighter squadron through the rock at point-blank range. They were inside the enemy shields before the AI even registered the attack. The simulation showed the audacious assault, human fighters bursting out of an exploding asteroid like bullets from a gun, racing through the alien ship's defensive perimeter before their sensors could react. Once inside, they used the ship's own size against it, Colonel Chen added. Hegemony vessels are so large that internal communications rely on their main computer. When Kim's people destroyed the AI core, 40,000 alien crew members were suddenly cut off from each other in a ship they could barely navigate manually. Elena shook her head in disbelief. They surrendered an entire dreadnought because we destroyed their computer? The hegemony doesn't train their people to fight without technological support, General Harrison explained. For thousands of years, superior technology has been enough to win any battle. They never learn to adapt when that advantage disappears. He brought up the most recent data, showing positions throughout the solar system as of the current day. By 2020, we had established a defensive perimeter that extends beyond Neptune. The hegemony controls a few outposts in the outer system, but they can't advance closer to Earth without facing our entire fleet. Elena studied the display, noting that human positions now outnumbered alien ones by a significant margin. So we're winning? Colonel Chen and General Harrison exchanged worried looks. That's the problem, she said. We're not just winning, we're dominating. And that's exactly what the hegemony fears most. General Harrison expanded the view to show star systems beyond our solar system. Red indicators marked hegemony worlds, while isolated green dots showed what appeared to be human positions. Our scout ships have been exploring nearby systems for the past decade, he explained. Every time we establish a new outpost, the hegemony high command gets more desperate. They're facing something they've never encountered, a species that might actually be able to challenge their galactic empire. Elena realized the implications. That's why they're planning something big. Exactly, Colonel Chen confirmed. Intelligence suggests they're preparing to end the threat permanently. Not just military action, complete annihilation of human civilization before we can spread beyond our home system. General Harrison turned off the holographic display. The war that began with flying saucers over Washington is about to become a fight for humanity's survival, and our own governments are still trying to keep it secret. Elena looked around the command center, watching analysts track alien movements and coordinate human defenses across billions of miles of space. How long do we have? According to our latest intelligence, Colonel Chen replied, maybe 6 months before they arrive with enough firepower to sterilize Earth from orbit. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity had been fighting and winning an impossible war for 70 years, but the enemy was about to play their final card. High above the solar system's edge, strategist Vexihai of the Hegemony Third Fleet studied the holographic displays aboard the command ship Eternal Dominion. The data before him defied every principle of galactic warfare that had governed empire expansion for 3,000 years. Vexhai's 4 arms moved across the control interfaces as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports from the Sol system. Each document painted a more disturbing picture than the last. The humans had not only survived 70 years of conflict, they were thriving. Fleet Commander, his aide approached with visible concern. The High Council is demanding another status report. They want to know why the human problem has not been resolved. Vexhai's mandibles clicked in frustration. When this assignment began in 1952, it was supposed to be a routine subjugation mission. Survey a primitive world, eliminate any resistance, establish mining operations. Simple, standard. Instead, it had become the longest continuous military engagement in hegemony history. Show me the tactical evolution analysis again, Vexhai commanded. The hologram displayed human ship designs from the past 7 decades. The progression was terrifying in its speed. From crude rockets with welded-on weapons to sleek vessels that incorporated captured hegemony technology in ways that improved upon the original designs. They're not following any established development pattern, his aide observed. Most species require centuries to master basic energy shield technology. Humans reverse-engineered our deflector systems in 18 months and then enhanced them beyond our own capabilities. HFY studied a recording from the recent Battle of Titan Station. Human fighters were using shield modifications that created offensive energy pulses, something hegemony engineers had declared theoretically impossible. Yet there it was, recorded by their own sensors. What concerns the High Council most, the aide continued, is the expansion rate. Humans have established outposts in 17 star systems beyond their origin point. Our containment strategy has failed completely. That was the heart of the problem. The hegemony had spent decades trying to keep humanity confined to their home system while they studied this anomalous species. But humans refused to stay contained. Their ships appeared in distant sectors with no apparent regard for the established boundaries of galactic civilization. HFY accessed reports from across the galaxy, human settlements on worlds that should have taken centuries to reach, mining operations that extracted resources using techniques the hegemony had never seen. Most disturbing of all, evidence that humans were making contact with other species, many of whom had lived under hegemony rule for millennia. The rebellion on Kepler 442b has adopted human tactics, his aide reported. The local species somehow obtained human weapon designs and used them to destroy 3 of our garrison ships. The uprising has spread to 4 neighboring systems. HFY felt a cold certainty settle in his heart. This was exactly what the High Council feared most, not just human expansion, but human influence. The chaotic creativity that made humans so unpredictable in battle was spreading to other species like a virus. They're teaching others to fight like they do, he said quietly, showing them that superior technology can be overcome through unconventional thinking. The implications were staggering. The hegemony's entire galactic empire depended on technological superiority and predictable warfare. They conquered worlds by demonstrating overwhelming force until resistance seemed futile. But humans had proven that resistance was never futile, it just required imagination. A new report appeared on his display, this one marked with the highest security classification. HFY opened it and felt his blood chill. The document detailed human activities in the core worlds region, the heart of hegemony space, supposedly unreachable by any species without formal approval. How did they get ships past the barrier fleet? He asked. His aide manipulated the hologram to show sensor readings from the core world's perimeter. They didn't go through the fleet, sir. According to this data, they somehow used micro-wormholes to bypass our defenses entirely. We're still trying to understand how they generated the gravitational distortions necessary for such small-scale space folding. HFY studied the readings in disbelief. Micro-wormhole technology was theoretical even for the hegemony. The energy requirements should have been impossible for a species that had only achieved interstellar flight within the past century. Sir, his aide said hesitantly, there's something else. The humans aren't just exploring, they're documenting everything about our empire. Ship designs, planetary defenses, population centers. It's as if they're conducting a comprehensive intelligence survey. The truth hit HFY like a physical blow. They're not just defending their territory, they're preparing to challenge our entire empire. A priority message appeared on his command console, bearing the seal of the High Council. HFY opened it with growing dread. The message was brief and absolute. Strategist HFY, the human contamination threatens galactic stability. You are authorized to deploy planet-killer weapons against Sol 3. Total sterilization required. No survivors. Execute within 60 standard cycles. HFY stared at the orders for a long moment. Planet killers were weapons of last resort, used only when a species posed an existential threat to galactic civilization. In 3,000 years of empire, they had been deployed fewer than a dozen times. Sir, his aide prompted. Prepare the extinction fleet, HFY commanded. Full deployment. Every planet killer in the third quadrant arsenal. As his aide rushed to carry out the orders, Vexahai returned to studying the human data. Even now, faced with their imminent destruction, he found himself grudgingly impressed by what this impossible species had accomplished. Meanwhile, billions of miles away in the Sol system, Elena Vasquez sat in Nightwatch Station's communications center, monitoring the intercepted hegemony transmissions that had brought her into this hidden war. "The signal patterns are changing," she reported to Colonel Chen and General Harrison. "More encrypted traffic, different routing protocols. They're preparing for something big." Marcus looked up from his computer terminal. "I'm seeing increased chatter on the government channels, too. Someone high up is getting nervous." General Harrison studied the data with growing concern. "Elena, can you determine the source locations of these signals?" Elena worked quickly, triangulating the transmission origins. When the results appeared on her screen, she felt her blood run cold. "They're coming from everywhere. At least 50 major ships positioned throughout the outer system, and more arriving every day." Colonel Chen activated the main display, showing real-time tactical information. The red dots representing hegemony forces had multiplied dramatically in recent weeks, but more concerning was their formation. They were arranging themselves for a coordinated assault on the inner system. "This is it," General Harrison said grimly. "They're done playing games. This is preparation for a full-scale invasion." Elena continued monitoring the alien communications, her translation software working to decode fragments of intercepted messages. What she found made her stomach sink. "I'm picking up references to something called Final Sterilization Protocol," she reported, "and weapons classifications I've never seen before." Marcus pulled up classified files from his intelligence contacts. "Planet killers," he said quietly. "According to this, they're weapons capable of destroying entire worlds. The hegemony has never used them in our system before." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. For 70 years, humanity had fought a war of gradual escalation. Ships against ships, bases against bases, with civilian populations remaining largely unaware. But this was different. "They're not coming to conquer us," Colonel Chen realized. "They're coming to annihilate us completely." General Harrison activated the emergency communication system. "All stations, this is Nightwatch Command. Initiate Disclosure Protocol Omega. Repeat, Disclosure Protocol Omega is now active." Elena looked around in confusion. "What's Disclosure Protocol Omega?" Marcus answered grimly. "It's the plan to tell the world the truth. All of it. If humanity is about to face extinction, we deserve to know what we're fighting for." Colonel Chen turned to Elena. "Dr. Vasquez, you're about to become the most important person on Earth. We need you to prepare a worldwide broadcast that will reveal everything: the secret war, the alien threat, and humanity's real capabilities." Elena felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. She had started this journey by discovering strange signals from space. Now she was being asked to change the course of human history. "How long do we have?" she asked. General Harrison checked the tactical display one more time. The red dots were moving closer to Earth's orbital path, and their formation suggested an attack plan of devastating scope. "Maybe 2 months before they're in position to strike," he said. "And once they begin their final assault, no secret will be worth keeping anymore." Elena looked around the command center one last time, watching the hidden defenders of humanity prepare for the greatest battle in the species' history. Everything would change now. The age of secrecy was ending, and the age of open war was about to begin. The only question was whether humanity would survive to see what came next. Elena stood in the broadcast studio that the Disclosure Network had hastily assembled in an abandoned television station. Banks of computers surrounded her, connected to transmission systems that would hijack every communication satellite on Earth. In 30 minutes, she would tell 8 billion people that their planet had been at war for 70 years. Final systems check, Marcus called out from the control room. His fingers flew across keyboards as he prepared to override every major network simultaneously. Elena, you'll have approximately 18 minutes before government systems start blocking our signal. Colonel Chen reviewed the evidence one last time. Thousands of photographs, videos, and documents that proved humanity's secret war against the hegemony. Remember, keep it simple. Don't get lost in technical details. People need to understand the basics fast. Through the studio windows, Elena could see the early morning sky. Somewhere beyond the blue atmosphere, massive alien warships were moving into position for humanity's final judgment. According to their latest intelligence, the hegemony fleet would be in striking position within hours. Dr. Vasquez, General Harrison's voice crackled through her earpiece. Our deep space sensors are showing massive energy signatures moving past Jupiter. The planet killers are coming. Elena took a deep breath and looked directly into the camera. Everything she had believed about humanity's place in the universe was about to change forever. More importantly, everything everyone believed was about to change, too. 30 seconds, Marcus announced. Elena's phone buzzed with frantic calls from government officials who had somehow learned about the planned broadcast. She ignored them all. The time for secrecy was over. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, go! Elena looked directly into the camera and began speaking. My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez, and I'm a radio astronomer. 3 months ago, I discovered something that changed my understanding of everything. Today, I'm going to share that discovery with all of humanity. Around the world, television programs and internet streams suddenly cut to Elena's face. Emergency broadcast systems activated. Cell phones received emergency alerts. In governments and military installations across Earth, officials watched in horror as their most closely guarded secret began spilling onto every screen on the planet. For the past 70 years, Elena continued, humanity has been at war with an alien empire called the hegemony. This war has been fought in secret by military forces you've never heard of, using technology decades ahead of anything you've seen. Today, that war is about to become very public, because the enemy is preparing to destroy our planet completely. The first images appeared on screen. Declassified photographs of battles in space, alien ships engaged by human fighters among the asteroids, and installations throughout the solar system that the public had never known existed. In living rooms across the world, families stared at their televisions in stunned silence. Social media exploded with confusion, disbelief, and growing alarm. Government phones rang constantly as officials tried to implement damage control protocols that had never been tested on this scale. The good news, Elena said, is that we've been winning. Human pilots and engineers have consistently outfought and outthought an enemy with technology thousands of years ahead of ours. We've established bases throughout our solar system and begun expanding to nearby star systems. We've captured enemy ships and reverse-engineered their technology to create defenses they never imagined possible. More images flashed across screens worldwide. The captured hegemony dreadnought, human colonies on distant moons, and technology that looked like science fiction but was completely real. In the Night Watch Station Command Center, General Harrison watched global communication networks overload as billions of people tried to process the revelation simultaneously. Elena's signal is holding, he reported, still broadcasting on all major networks. But in space above Earth, strategist Vexhai was watching the same broadcasts with growing alarm. His translation systems were converting the human announcements in real time, and what he heard defied all strategic planning. They're telling their entire population about the war, his aide reported in disbelief. Broadcasting classified military information to every member of their species simultaneously. Vex High studied the data streams coming from Earth's communication networks. Humans were not panicking as expected. Instead, they were sharing information, coordinating responses, and most disturbingly, volunteering to help. Back on Earth, Elena continued her broadcast. The bad news is that the hegemony has decided to end this war permanently. Fleet Command estimates that alien warships carrying planet-killing weapons will be in position to attack Earth within hours. Our secret military forces are preparing to defend us, but for the first time in 70 years, they need our help. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Amateur radio operators began coordinating with military frequencies. University physics departments started calculating orbital mechanics for the incoming fleet. Computer programmers offered to help with electronic warfare against alien systems. At MIT, Professor Sarah Kim, granddaughter of the hero of Ceres Station, activated emergency protocols that converted the university's research reactors into weapons-grade equipment. If aliens want to threaten Earth, she announced to her students, they're about to learn why humans survived being the apex predators on a death world. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Mumbai, software engineers began writing viruses designed to attack alien computer systems. In São Paulo, aerospace workers started modifying civilian aircraft with improvised weapons. In Lagos, mechanical engineers began converting industrial equipment into defensive systems. Strategist Vex High watched the unprecedented mobilization with growing concern. Their entire species is adapting to warfare in real time, he reported to the Fleet Command. This level of spontaneous military coordination should be impossible. On Earth, Elena's broadcast entered its final phase. Humanity has spent 70 years proving that we don't accept impossible odds. Today, we have the chance to prove it again. Not just our military, but all of us. The enemy expects us to panic, surrender, or hide. Instead, we're going to show them what 8 billion humans can accomplish when we work together. The first alien ships appeared in Earth's sky, just as Elena's broadcast ended. Massive vessels that blotted out stars, descending through the atmosphere with weapons capable of sterilizing continents. But instead of defenseless cities, they found a planet that had transformed itself into a fortress in a matter of hours. Amateur astronomers tracked the ship's movements and broadcast targeting data. Ham radio operators coordinated global defense networks. Hackers launched cyber attacks against alien systems using techniques developed in gaming communities and university labs. In New York, a high school physics teacher named Rodriguez figured out how to overload the power grid to create an electromagnetic pulse that disrupted alien sensors. In Tokyo, a retired mechanic discovered that modified car engines could generate the specific frequency needed to interfere with hegemony communications. But the most shocking development came from an unlikely source. In Detroit, a group of teenagers who had been playing a space combat video game for years recognized the tactical patterns of the alien formation. They contacted the military through social media and provided strategic advice that helped coordinate the planet's defenses. Strategist Vex High received constant reports of impossible human adaptations, civilian vehicles converted to weapons platforms, industrial facilities producing military equipment with no advanced planning. Most disturbing of all, human civilians coordinating with military forces as if they had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. "Sir," his aide reported with obvious distress, "our advanced scouts are being engaged by human forces that include both military and civilian units. They're using tactics we've never seen before, improvised strategies that seem to be developing in real time." The truth was dawning on Vex High with terrible clarity. The humans hadn't just been hiding their military capabilities for 70 years. They had been hiding their species' true nature. Not just soldiers and engineers, but every human possessed the same chaotic creativity that made them so dangerous in combat. "Pull back the advance units," Vex High ordered. "We need to reassess the situation completely." As the alien ships retreated to regroup, Elena stood in the broadcast studio watching news feeds from around the world. Humanity had responded to the revelation of alien contact not with panic, but with the same stubborn determination that had won them a secret war for 7 decades. "Dr. Vasquez," General Harrison's voice came through her earpiece. "The hegemony fleet is withdrawing beyond lunar orbit. It appears they're reconsidering their attack plan." Elena smiled as she watched coverage of humans across the globe working together to defend their world. Children helping their parents build radio jammers, grandmothers sharing engineering knowledge with defense contractors, university students collaborating with military tacticians. "I think they're realizing something important," Elena replied. "They came here to fight a planet with 8 billion people on it. What they found was 8 billion people who just learned they're part of a galactic war and decided they want to win it." In space above Earth, strategist HFY stared at his tactical displays in defeat. The planet below had transformed from a target into something unprecedented in galactic history. An entire world united in warfare, with every citizen potentially capable of the same impossible innovations that had frustrated the hegemony for decades. He opened a communication channel to the High Council. "This is strategist HFY. The human problem is worse than we thought. Much worse. We're not dealing with a dangerous species. We're dealing with a dangerous concept that's already spreading to other worlds. If we attack Earth now, we'll only prove to the entire galaxy that the hegemony can be defeated." The response from the High Council was swift and decisive. Withdraw immediately and establish a quarantine perimeter. The humans had won not through superior technology or military might, but by revealing their true nature to both themselves and their enemies. Elena watched the alien ships disappear beyond the edge of Earth's solar system, carrying with them the news that humanity was no longer content to stay hidden among the stars. The secret war was over. The real war for the future of galactic civilization was just beginning. And for the first time in their 3,000-year history, the hegemony was afraid.